This week's episode is brought to you by October Kid. Thank you, October Kid. It's with generous support of listeners like you that we at The Whole Rabbit get to keep making our homegrown batch of esoteric insanity every week. If you'd like to become an honored supporter, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 not only gets you access to our extended shows, our Discord server, the best place to talk with fans and creators alike, but our 5x5 vinyl sticker of our big boobid cover art shipped to you at no additional cost. By request, we've added a $10 tier, which includes the notes we use to record the show. On this week's episode, we discuss the popular and well-received simulation theory. Do the best and brightest truly believe that we're Sims in some futuristic computer our great-great-great-great-great-grandkids made? We explore the various perspectives and possibilities, which range from subtle to fantastic. In the extended show, we discuss the Qabbalistic approach to simulation theory and some truly entertaining ways to use AI and random number generators to get big results in your magic practice. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Did somebody say brains?
Yeah.
Kind of hungry.
Brains have the prions, though. You don't want the prions.
I prefer to call brains brain meats.
Head cheese. Y'all know what head cheese is? I'm not going to explain it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just assume that this reality is a simulation happening 9 levels deep into some hypothetical cluster of supercomputers designed to extrapolate discrete locations of hyper-rare mineral deposits in deep space, and that you, everyone you know, and even your little dog too, is just an inconsequential artifact of the hyper-realistic physics code? Nay! We cross-triangulate the source back to its true origins, and we're up to 99.999% certain this is actually occurring within the third REM cycle of a football player named O.J. Simpson near the end of the 20th century, and he's just about to wake up because this week we're talking about how to hack the simulated universe. I'm your host, Hack Rabbit, logging in yet again from the transcendental mainframe at the end of time. I'm joined this week by co-hosts, the barbecue decryptor, Morisama.
Greetings, y'all.
The home studio version of Malachor 5.0.
I taught my protocol droid how to take a mad bong rip.
And the Astralabacus, Hecka Astra.
Hello, Abacus?
Abacus.
See, that's why she's the Abacus.
Everybody loves simulation.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever heard anyone pronounce it Abacus.
Abacus.
Abac.
It's like he's invoking a god of accounting.
Yes, some hybrid between Abacus and Abraxas.
I'm just stupidest.
No, you are an actor.
That's why I shouldn't be dictator. Like Caligula, it's now pronounced this way. Also, everybody's being tortured now.
Oh!
And I will watch from my orgy up here. I think everybody loves simulations. I remember learning that word back when it was used to describe the first game I ever used a joystick for, which was 94 LucasArts TIE Fighter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I guess, because that's like a flight simulator, huh? Or
Yeah,
like-
it has the same kind of controls as like, remember when the first time you played one of those games and you'd intuitively push up to go up, but that's not how a helicopter control works?
It's like inverted
Yeah.
axis. Yeah.
I remember playing that and being like, what the fuck? Also, LucasArts and we're going to talk about Maxis are my two favorite companies growing up with games.
I just wanted to say, like, anytime that Luke and I go back and forth between playing a game, he always inverts the axis, and I just have to switch it back. It's so frustrating because I can't do it. I just can't do it. Maybe I'd just be a shit pilot.
So yeah, Will Wright cut his teeth with Maxis creating, if you're old enough, like we are, childhood classics like SimCity.
And Sim Farm, and Sim Earth, and Sim Helicopter.
Park, and Sim Tower.
Oh god, Sim Tower is so good. Sim Earth is based on the Game of Life, a cellular automata, by the way.
Interesting. Is that where you got the concept, like the idea?
That's how the engine of the game works, to calculate all of the different things happening on the game board.
You know what? I remember playing SimCity, and then shortly after that, I think I played Roller Coaster Tycoon, and there was this element of like where I realized that you're kind of just playing God playing these games, and that, in Roller Coaster Tycoon you could make a roller coaster just like the actual vehicle that goes along the tracks. You could just make it fly off into the water and kill everybody.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is like a really malicious God move, like a fuck you.
And you can also pick them up and put them back on the path or drown them if you want. Like, I really enjoyed that aspect of Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah, you could pick up like mascots and just throw them in the ocean.
You can just like make no restrooms and just have shit everywhere.
It's basically a playground type simulation where we can experiment with things that we can't actually do in real life. And GTA is also a great example of that.
SimCity was kind of like a god simulator in a sense. It's just using cityscapes.
Yeah, and I like the aspect that you get to build and landscape things as much as you get to fuck with people.
Most people are familiar with Will Wright's work by having played The Sims, which was the most popular video game of all time for many years and boasted a loyal player base that otherwise was entirely disinterested in video games.
I had the game.
Like, if you didn't play video games, there was a good chance that you still played The Sims, maybe even religiously.
Yeah, I was a Maxis fangirl. This was one of the most revolutionary games I had ever played, but I would always be in the part where, you know, when you build the house and you like structure everything out, I would just play architect all day. I didn't care about playing the other aspect of the game. And that's why I think these types of simulator games, the open world simulator, are so popular because people want to have a sandbox to create things and destroy them as well.
Well, and eventually the game, what is it called? Black and White came out.
Oh, that was a good one. Is that the Pokemon game?
No. This is like quite literally a god simulator.
Black and White.
Yeah, we learned in the AlphaGo documentary that the creator of AlphaGo, that would later become Google DeepMind, worked on the AI for, I believe it's Peter Molyneux's Black and White.
Oh, it's a strategy game. Oh.
It's a lot like SimCity, but you are actually playing God, and your villagers do things to appease you and give you more power and spread your influence.
They like do sacrifices and rituals. If I remember correctly, I played it like a long time ago, so it's kind of hard to remember, but
I need to look it up.
It really is a god simulator.
You also get an avatar, which is the equivalent of a giant beast like Godzilla or King Kong, and the people will either love the beast or be terrified of it. And the way the beast interacts with the environment is probably where a lot of the experimental AI was used, because the animal can do lots of different behaviors, and it would keep track of a lot of strange statistics, like how many times he took a poo on villagers. So right around that same era, 2003, while the world of science fiction was still reeling from the titanically overhyped Matrix sequels, Nick Bostrom burst onto the scene with his philosophical treatise, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? Which would only continue to gain popularity and attention after public figures Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson became known believers. At one point, The New Yorker suggested that Musk was among 2 billionaires expressing interest in throwing some money at breaking out of this simulation. Elon Musk would later comment saying that he and his brother had become so regularly invested in this topic as conversation, they agreed to ban the discussion while bringing guests in the hot tub because, quote, that really kills the magic.
Oh.
Which leaves us to question, if Elon Musk is not just talking about this stuff to seem cool, does he really believe that we live inside of some computer? Or is it more complicated and nuanced than that? This episode aims to answer this question and explore the various ontological possibilities and some down-to-earth examples which demonstrate that we do in fact live in a simulation.
So I just really want to stress that if the simulation theory doesn't make sense, or if you're wrapped up in the concept of a computer simulation based on our current devices, to keep an open mind, because we often put ourselves into a box with our perspectives and our biases, which closes us off from being able to take in perspectives outside of our own. A big part of this is rooted in the understandings that we gain through personal experiences, as well as an inherent link to our language. The English language is fairly obsolete in the sense that it does have archaic roots, even when it comes to much younger words. We can't really help but continue building from those roots, but that doesn't really mean our language is always faulty. It just means that we can end up pigeonholing ourselves into a biased perspective. So basically, all I'm saying is that the narrow understanding of what is a simulation based strictly on our current computers and our technology, once that's removed, it could result in simulation theory making more sense in a very organic way.
One of my favorite scientists, David Bohm, he actually started out as a linguist and became a theoretical physicist after that. And his basic argument is that our human organic physical language that we use to communicate colloquially is not a sufficient language to explain what is actually going on in the universe. If you're referring to it as a computer simulation, our language is not specific enough or structured in a way in which we can actually talk about it in a meaningful way.
Yeah, this is exactly the point that I've been trying to get to. And it took me a while to explain this when Luke and I were having a conversation as well. Our language is just not really sufficient to explore these ideas, but
Even talk about them, let alone, or express it to somebody else.
I'm going to try to explain a little bit. So like when we ask, is the universe a simulation? Well, kind of, yeah, the short answer is yes, but it might not be how you think it is. Because many people that entertain this theory seem to hold a very modern interpretation of both what the universe is and what a simulation is. And we tend to think of maybe a game or a program on a computer or a console. And I don't even think that definition is wrong if you take into account what those definitions truly mean. Like we went into that in the last show. But to really dissect the universe as a simulation theory, let's just go back to the choice of words again. The universe being everything that exists. This word universe comes from the late Middle English, derived from Old French univers, or Latin universum, neuter of universus, combined into one or whole, which in turn is from the words uni, meaning one, and versus, meaning turned. And then the word simulation means an imitation of a situation or process, the production of a computer model of something, especially for the purpose of study. It can be described as a model of a set of problems or events that can be used to teach someone how to do something or the process of making such a model. So I think it's important to consider the parameters that we put on language as individuals and in society, because when we use these blanket statements without having a deeper understanding of what it truly means, we get kind of lost.
Yeah, lost in the euphemisms and metaphors.
Yeah, we really box ourselves in with our language.
It limits your creative ability as well to think, oh, I know what that means. It can't be this. That closes a door of opportunity, of understanding really inherently what the universe is.
For me, there's a very clear to understanding what you're talking about here into just practical magic, specifically like elements. And, when we say that the four creative forces of earth, air, fire, and water, a lot of idiots out there are like, yeah, it was literally like a pool of water and then like fire and air and earth's like elements. And it's like, no, silly, like through the words and what you think you know about water or air, what we're talking about when we're talking about water magic or whatever, there's a different meaning, and that the words that we use in our outward understanding isn't the same as the inward hidden meaning.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
I think it's kind of funny because, like, the way that we box ourselves in, you could even see that being expressed as, like, well, in the movie The Matrix, you have to free your mind to basically exit out of the Matrix. And that's kind of very applicable here because you have to free your mind from all of these preconceived notions of what this all means. Stop relating it to physical devices in front of you and a very narrow-minded idea of what is simulated reality.
That's the thing about The Matrix. When it first came out, it really helped us imagine an old idea in a new way, and we ought not to restrict ourselves to the new metaphor. Appreciate the metaphor in its ability to be told in different ways. So the whole point of putting us in a computer is that it is kind of absurd.
But you're meant to reflect on the metaphor and understanding that it's a basic concept that can be applied to any level of the universe, right?
The whole, the universe is a simulation theory is kind of like a koan in and of itself, that, to truly understand it, you have to become one with it, just like Neo becomes one with the Matrix.
And that's what, existing in reality right now, meditation is. For me, at least.
And by way of people's experience with computers, it allowed people to re-explore old Gnostic concepts of the universe being a simulation, because, as we said earlier, the word doesn't necessarily just pertain to computers. So let's explore the simulated reality and the number of different ways that it is most likely true, or at least what some people believe are true. I think we should start with the most obvious one, which is, you've never really been outside the simulation that's running inside your head. So,
you can never see the back of your head.
Not really, no. What you consider reality is an electrochemical reaction happening internally meant to translate the data from your sense organs into something you can experience.
Your body just regurgitates it into a series of information so that you can have this perception of what is outside of yourself. You're functioning as a computer and you are simulating a reality within yourself to be able to have that perception of what is outside of yourself.
Yeah, I would even make the argument that most people don't realize they're in a simulation because we're not even picking up all the data. Like our eyes cannot even see all the colors. We can't even see all the information. We can't hear the supersonic or the, infrasonic,
Yes.
very deep tones.
We have filters.
We don't know shit, so we don't even know we're in a simulation because we can't know.
Yeah, it's very much like how dogs have 2 cones of vision instead of 3, and so they don't know that they're missing out on seeing colors. That's just translating into shades of brown instead of other shades that we can perceive. Like they don't know.
Insects can see more colors than we can.
Yeah, you have, we can't see infrared or ultraviolet.
Yeah, we don't know what it looks like.
Gamma, X-rays, all that.
Some of them can see that too.
In a sense, there's an external reality that our sense organs take apart and translate to our minds in order for us to have an experience. This necessarily means we're hallucinating reality all the time.
When I found out that our eyes don't even see all the spectrums of light, that's when it clicked for me, is like, I'm in a fucking fake ass world. At least in what my understanding is. In my mind, I know scientifically, it's shown with data, and like, you cannot pick up these things. Your brain has no receptors. Nothing goes off in your head. And I was like, damn, I'm not even getting the full picture. This gots to be false. I can't know enough.
Well, it's interesting because it's both real and fake, because what is real is kind of relative to the experiencer.
Yeah, this whole discussion could fall under, like, are we in a dream or not? When you're in the dream world, isn't it just as real as your woken mind? It's a simulation inside a simulation, dreams inside of dreams. I think there's an Upanishad about that.
Well, if you look up simulation theory on Wikipedia, it mentions the Vedas and it mentions Mayan cosmology as well. In one description of the universe, the Maya describe everything as a woodblock print to the teotl.
Like a stamp?
We're like we're like a manga. So because our perceptions only represent reality, they are necessarily symbolic simulations of what is real. This is how humans are capable of transmitting information from generation to generation without each one having to learn it themselves from scratch. While a dog must be caught in the act to learn, a human may simulate the act internally in their mind and learn regardless of time or location.
This is what planning behavior is, by the way. And a lot of high intelligence is signaled by an ability to plan ahead of time to hunt or something. Like wolves do this, and also dolphins hunt this way, killer whales.
So conceptualization naturally involves simulating something, at least in your mind.
Yes. It's happening inside your mind's eye, which is another simulation.
To bring it down to a level of biology, we are endowed with these things called mirror neurons, which are neurons that fire both when an animal acts and when an animal observes the same action performed by another. Thus, the neuron mirrors the behavior of another, as though the observer were itself acting. Such neurons have been directly observed in humans and primate species and birds, which is why you flinch when somebody gets their finger cut off in a horror movie.
If people work out together or train for like a physical activity, if you put a person by themselves, they don't do as well or exert themselves enough or push themselves when they do it in a group. So the signaling of a group to an individual also pushes your boundaries of what you can and can't do.
Like being able to mimic somebody helps.
Just having the visual stimulus, like if you're running a track and you want to like beat your best time or something, having other people out there running the track with you will actually make you beat your best time. You're more likely to be better at what you're doing.
It's like a sympathetic internal reflection.
Yeah, exactly. Or how crowds get out of control. Like crowd surfing is a form of that, or like even riots happen because of the same thing.
Like a feedback loop.
Exactly. Or an echo.
So in terms of mimicking, that's how AI learns, but that's also how children learn. So role-playing is basically simulated behavior.
Yeah, you could be immersed in a simulation of like reenactments or even cosplaying. It's empowering because you get to play. It's like playing a game in that you have your own simulation you can play with. The look that you get or whatever, or I get to pretend I was in the Civil War or whatever people reenact.
with children, they play make-believe, and there's this level of reflection that's happening as they're playing make-believe, and there's also a level of like, yes, I like this, no, I don't like this. So they're also kind of figuring things out as they're playing make-believe and honing, I guess, future make-believe or scenarios.
Yeah, it's like an integration process. Like when you know how you need a time to reflect on something? The play process is very important for that kind of processing to happen in our brains.
I think it's fascinating that AI also does this. Like AlphaGo did this, it was given all these examples of human Go games, and it mimicked different behaviors and then did this kind of make-believe playing by itself against itself. It did this kind of same process that children do when they play make-believe.
And it's interesting, too, because it'll start, when the AI is pitted against itself, it'll start making nonsensical moves or things that appear to make it'll purposely choose a non-logical move to trip up its opponent. So it starts to make strategy based on play behavior, which is like, haha, it's almost like it's telling a joke with a punchline.
Yeah, and it does this even prior to that, too, just to figure out what happens if I do this? Like a kid, what happens if I poke this?
I've been through that. I burned my finger on the stove.
This reminds me of Robert Anton Wilson when he says, we live through our fantasies, we merely survive our realities. That's the first big part. You've never been outside your head, and to even learn with your head, you need to simulate behavior, and you couldn't help it because you have mirror neurons. Number 2 on the list is that we do live in a Number 2 on the list is
we live in a civilization.
We live in a civilization.
We live in a society.
Civilization and society is a simulation because it's a collection of institutions built to serve and simulate evolutionary drives. So instead of going and learning to like run and hunt something with a spear, you go to the grocery store. Instead of having to carry everything you can, you have a car. There's highways. There's postal services.
Instead of fighting and killing, we have other peoples we elect as representatives to do it for us. Or we also have sports games.
Those are simulated battles in many ways. I've heard people say that football is a simulation of deliver the nuclear warhead.
Oh, cool.
My political science teacher also told me, because football is such a micro universe, that if you learn about the politics in football, you can understand the politics on a global scale.
Or in war, any kind of war or fight, you can understand. It's game theory.
I'm still not going to watch football, but, for the people that
Sports. Go sports team.
It's all scripted.
And by football, you mean not soccer, like they call it in England?
Come on now, it's not rugby. We've been over this. Also, we invented baseball. You're welcome. I know it's cricket, but it's still baseball. It's different.
But America's national sport is still yachting, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, I better get a yacht.
Isn't that weird?
Oh, and then the human cities look like circuit boards, but they also look like slime molds and bacterial growths, by the way.
They all look similar because as above, so below. But I think that it's because it's basically the same stuff going on. Like the way we think of cities is probably the same way we think of how things move on a computer. So the way we've learned to optimize our cities is probably similar to how we would optimize something on a motherboard. But I'm not an expert. I'm not sure for sure.
Well, there's definitely an ease of flow, just like in your blood vessels, the way that they grow. It's to transport energy along a pathway in the most efficient manner possible. So that's why the cities and the circuit boards and everything start to look that way, because in our universe, in our set of rules, that's just kind of what works best. And forms start to mimic each other over time, even though they evolve separately, you think there's these separations, but we all play by the same rules.
Even if it's like in our minds, this virtual world, it's still quantifiable, like atomically in the memory cards and stuff. It's still atoms and stuff. So arguably, it's just as real in terms of physics as you and me are.
It's just a subset of our own universe, right? So it by definition in mathematics, the subset must follow the rules of the master set.
To take this further, taking a look at money specifically, Robert Anton Wilson explains how the role of money works in the simulation. After all, we call money currency, which you could think of as current running through like a big circuit board, right? He says, of course, on top of the hardwired imprinting of the biosurvival circuit comes softer conditioning. This allows the safe space perimeter to be generalized outward from the mother's body to the pack or tribe. The extended family, as it's called. Every social animal has, in addition to the Darwinian instinct, or genetic program of self-preservation, a similar instinct to protect the gene pool. This is the basis of altruism, and social animals could not survive without it. Wild dogs or wolves bark to warn the rest of the pack that an intruder is coming. Your domesticated dog identifies you as the pack leader. He barks to warn you that an intruder is coming, and also to warn the intruder that he's ready to fight for his territory. As civilization has advanced, the pack bond, the tribe, the extended family, has been broken. This is the root of the widely diagnosed alienation and existential dread and anguish that so many social critics have written about so eloquently. What has happened is the conditioning of the biosurvival bond to the gene pool has been replaced by a conditioning of biosurvival drive to hook on to the peculiar tickets we call money. Concretely, a modern man or woman doesn't look for biosurvival security in the gene pool, the pack, or the extended family. Biosurvival depends on getting the tickets. You can't live without money, as the living theater troupe used to cry out in anguish. If the tickets are withdrawn, acute biosurvival anxiety appears at once. Imagine, as vividly as possible, what you would feel and what you would do if all your sources of biosurvival tickets or money were cut off tomorrow. This is precisely what tribal men and women feel when they're cut off from the tribe. It is why exile or even ostracism were sufficient punishments to enforce tribal conformity throughout most of human history. As recently as Shakespeare's day, the threat of exile was an acute terror signal. Banished, cries Romeo, the damned use that word in hell. In traditional society, belonging to the tribe was biosecurity. Exile was terror and a real threat of death. In modern society, having the tickets or money is biosecurity. Having the tickets withdrawn is terror.
This kind of reminds me of what they did to the truckers in Canada.
Or what's happening to innocent Russian people who have nothing to do with what's going on.
Oh yeah, they got kicked off of Swift.
Everything. Like,
everyone's leaving.
Anyway, that's too deep right now.
I know it happens, and that's the first response is to take the money source, the power flow, the energy flow away from that area to punish it.
Right? Yeah, I guess, Robert Anton Wilson, he explained why it's an effective tactic.
Well, this is why it's such a viable tactic for conformity, because you can literally starve someone out by taking away their finances.
Yeah, you don't have to take their food even. You just take their money.
It really is our modern version of being, kicked out of the tribe.
Yeah, I can totally see that now.
So to wrap up this idea that we already live in a simulated universe, and that's civilization, the society that we live in with its currency, so on and so forth, the integration of computers arguably has brought it to new and psychedelic levels. If you Google Deus Ex was right meme, you're going to find the source for the following exposition. This is written by Anonymous, October 21st, 2017, and goes as follows. Okay, so back in the day, some computer nerds made machines that would take a bunch of outside data, process it, and try to predict the future. To fund it, they predominantly sold the information to people who wanted to buy and sell stocks. Enough people started doing this that they started making the machines send out stock reports themselves, which other machines took as data to further sell, buy, and report on stocks themselves. This eventually created a massive feedback loop of stock data being managed by autonomic intelligence, not the same as artificial intelligence, that outright blocked out the human element. And right now, the open secret is that the market is out of human control. If anyone tried to remove these data loops, even one out-of-sync chain could cause the world economy to collapse overnight. Are you following me so far? So basically,
those are trading bots.
So basically, in tandem with this technology, the internet happened and a load of marketers started moving to content marketing, which is the idea that the product and the marketing are the same thing and that you're selling a lifestyle story, which is why if you pay attention, most of the companies that used to sell a product have made massive investments into media space. This is fine in and of itself. The 80s had a similar version of this. The problem is that the easy proliferation of consumer data reaches these autonomic intelligences, and they begin to report on what kind of narratives sell versus the ones that do not. Simple, right? Well, not really. You see, we live in a post-hyper-normalization world, a Soviet term for propaganda that keeps things one way when reality is different. When you mix in marketing and propaganda with feedback loops and add on top of that Google's ad program that essentially bubbles people into feedback loops, that only give them what they want to hear so you can sell them something, it basically creates mass psychological dissonance between different groups of people that, consciously or not, have their life's context formed around media narratives. It's one reason why the social justice stuff is hitting so hard right now, despite the fact that America is an otherwise pretty prosperous country with with no major problems causing anyone to starve. Anyway, the implication is that if you basically have cultural narrative context being created by literal abstract machinations who may or may not be intelligent, it's no good, because there's no moral parameter to stop the data from trying to get everyone to kill each other. See, people keep thinking the robot revolution is going to be the Terminator, but it's going to be more like The Shining. So people have their lives contextualized by inhuman machinations, which, okay, is pretty bleak, but not outright destructive, right? Just a bunch of consumers being taken for a ride, right? Well, no, you see, the consequences of religion more or less falling out of style in the public consciousness is that there's no longer a single common cultural narrative. So you just don't get to see Tim at Sunday school. So what? Well, the larger point of contention is that there's always been a considerable percentage of any population that gives way to fanatic behavior, which in antiquity usually meant religious fanaticism. But if the narrative of religion is weakened and the only alternative narratives are autonomically generated content marketing narratives too shallow to really make a lifestyle out of, you run into a phenomena where a percentage of the population has essentially migrated between brands in a pseudo-idolatrous methodology. When you really come down to it, a fan base is literally just the same thing as a cult. They both act as a community that bring people together to discuss a specific narrative, except the religious ones actually at least try to offer the illusion of being beneficial to society at large, while the autonomic models are there purely for profit and offer hedonic sensory overload to compensate for any shallowness. Did you ever stop to think about how we live in a world where a bunch of crazy people do crazy shit over cartoons, harass people, send death threats, sell cars for sauce, etc.? Do you think that's just normal behavior? No, those sorts of people would have been in a fucking monastery a couple hundred years ago. They're fanatics, pure and simple. Nothing wrong with being a fanatic if it's constructive, but those narratives don't have that interest in mind.
Damn, dude. It's a division tactic, but if computers are in charge of it, that is a harrowing realization.
That's the thing, is they're not even conscious and they've already been put in the driver's seat to a certain extent.
Yeah. Like when we play a game of chess, we know that they're just pieces on a table, like that they're pieces of plastic that we made. But when the computer plays chess with people, I'm scared.
I don't think we would be intellectually honest if we didn't address where everyone got this idea in the modern era, which is from Nick Bostrom. This is number 3 on our list, which says we live in a set of nested simulations. Nick Bostrom's premise goes as such. Many works of science fiction, as well as some forecasts by serious technologists and futurists, predict that enormous amounts of computing power will be available in the future. Let us suppose for a moment that these predictions are correct. One thing that later generations might do with their super powerful computers is run detailed simulations of their forebears, or of people like their forebears. Because their computers would be so powerful, they could run a great many simulations. Suppose that these simulated people are conscious, as they would be if the simulations were sufficiently fine-grained, and if a certain quite widely accepted position in the philosophy of mind is correct, then it could be that the case that the vast majority of minds like ours do not belong to the original race, but rather to people simulated by the advanced descendants of an original race.
So they would be looking at a simulation of their own past to try to see into the future or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we're just a product of that.
You can build up your history and put it into the machine, and the history machine will extrapolate that into the future, depending on what you put into it.
Yeah, it brings up a whole tree of discussions. And like, what is identity? Because you'd have to simulate identities of individuals, you know, of like the whole world, of the whole, you know, precursor generation. That's all just information and data. That's a whole nother discussion in itself. You know, how do you quantify somebody's moral scope into a, you know, like a video game? You know, how do you transport the consciousness of, essentially that's what you're trying to do here with this high-tech computing power in the future, is just use it to recreate a virtual consciousness that's exactly what was somebody in the past, and see what they're going to do in the future.
But you have to feed it as much information as possible in order for the resolution of that image would be clearer, or perhaps the prediction would be closer or more accurate the more information you feed into that system.
I'm just getting hung up on how do we input the information into the system of moral scopes, or, you know, all those things that are very hard to quantify in philosophy.
Something beyond what we have right now.
Well, if you're a materialist, all of moral philosophy can just shake out of the limitations of everything being material.
Because like Tyler Durden said, you know, you're not your paycheck or what's in your wallet, but then on the other end of that, you kind of are in terms of what your data says. And you'd have to be able to program it so that it doesn't just look at that surface level data and that it taps into the Tyler Durden mindset and is like, wait, he's not just all that material. items. There's some other stuff is the part in programming that's going to be the quantum leap, so to speak.
Basically, the Sims would have to be alive and not think they're Sims and think they're capable of Tyler Durden levels of freedom to actually be accurate simulations worth using.
If we follow Bostrom's logic here, is that at some point in the future, we're going to have the computing power. So that means that the computing power is already there in the magical world to have the problem of how do we reconcile, how do we balance this out? There are paths, I guess, on the tree of life that describe exactly how to do this on the internal spiritual level for sure. But that's a different computer. You know, that's like the real big computer to the Qabbalists. And all that mysterious information is programmed. Like it's got a language. It's already at work here.
But we're parsing way more data than a computer reading like 5 things about our criminal history or like, you know, our vaccine status or whatever they want to read for our social credit score.
That is one argument against simulation theory, is that we don't really run simulations with a bunch of extra stuff. And it seems like superfluous to be running the entire universe just to be looking at your ancestors on Earth. Likewise, there are limits to computation, but assuming there's some fudge room here, Nick Bostrom continues, it is then possible to argue that if this were the case, we would be rational to think that we are likely among the simulated minds, rather than among the original biological ones. Therefore, if we don't think that we are currently living in a computer simulation, we are not entitled to believe that we will have descendants who will run lots of simulations of their forebears.
Whoa. Like, what if we're the computers, man, and we're just making babies when we build a computer, man?
Or we're the ones who set the first lap time and everybody else follows us.
I think it would make more sense to say that, like, if the universe is a simulation and it was to be run on some sort of computer, it just as a way for us to understand how it works, it would make more sense to say that it runs more on like a quantum computer as opposed to just a purely calculating brute force computer.
I agree, because we need exponential more amount of calculating power to even equal a human brain and the capacity that it can parse information in real time. Like, give a computer long enough and it can calculate all of the possible, you know, reactions or, you know, happenings around you. But you know, the simulation needs another layer, dimension of calculation on top of it in order to even resemble a biological brain.
We're not even close to being at that point with quantum computing where we can truly understand what exactly quantum computing can do. So, like, I don't know, that appears to me a lot like, like what we don't know about quantum computing yet, or how to even build it or use it, is a lot like how we don't understand the universe on those levels.
How physics works on that level, exactly.
Yeah, even the little bit of technological leaps we've made in the past 15 years or so, it's already getting kind of spooky and magical.
Yep.
It absolutely is.
They entangled a tardigrade the other day into a Schrodinger cat kind of state where it's existing at 2 points in our universe at the same time, and our instruments can't detect at which spot it's in. So
that's not okay.
That's a living being. They did it about 5 or 10 years ago with a small piece of a nanometer piece of steel or something like that, like metal, and then they've done it on a tardigrade now. So they're probably going to do a bacterium next, and then a cell, and then
a human.
And then we can have transporters for finally.
Sign me up.
I feel bad for the tardigrade. I really like tardigrades.
No, it's fine.
They can survive anything.
They've been entangled. So that means that the tardigrade exists in 2 spots at once, and we've created a mini wormhole that we can control.
That's like saying, we can torture a human for this amount and he'll still survive. It's fine.
I was excited about it.
We're talking about how that's what's going on. We're the tardigrade, and God's just fucking blinking us in and out of his existence.
But if our technology matches the level of like how our brains work, can you imagine? We could, you know how you can terraform stuff in SimCity and like build mountains and stuff and make volcanoes erupt? We're going to be able to do that at some point if we can figure this out.
I can hear some yogi from ancient India just yelling at me, I told you it worked this way. I told you would be able to do it through science someday. We've just been able to do it longer through meditation. That's all.
That's the singularity, my bro.
So to wrap up Nick Bostrom's conclusion, there are 3 points. 1, eventually futuristic civilizations eventually find it useful to run universe simulations. Because the number of simulations probably outnumber the real thing, it's likely that we live in one. And lastly, we might live in a simulation of a simulation. We could be something that the simulated humans are simulating.
Seriously.
So we could be something that the Sims are doing just for fun. We're a sim of a sim of a sim of a sim, possibly.
I was always wondering what they were doing when they stay. You know, you ever have a sim that just sits on their computer and games and chats all day? I was like, I bet they're playing me in real life.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm a sim on a computer.
Well, in Hinduism, it's assumed that this is all just the dream of Brahma.
Isn't that how the Cthulhu stuff is done too? Like the ancient one sleeps and when the dream ends and they wake up, then the world ends?
Yeah, the Indians thought of this a long time ago. There's some problems I have with the simulation theory. For practical purposes, we don't understand the characters in video games and movies and books to be real. As far as we understand them to be, they're basically philosophical zombies, meaning externally they appear to be alive, but inside they have no subjective qualia of experience. It's possible we're wrong, and every time you kill someone in a video game, you commit murder twice. One in the simulation on your console, and secondly in the simulation being run in your own brain to even be able to perceive the device that you're running. Why do we suddenly make the jump from our common experience of simulations being inhabited by philosophical zombies to simulations being equal in qualia to our own experience right now? There's absolutely nothing in our experience that agrees with this.
There's something that this reminds me of in terms of angelic magic. If you're trying to contact one of the lesser angels, you have to contact every single angel above it, and it's archangel. But when you want an archangel, you just ask the archangel.
Well, there's no reason to not invoke metaphysical realities like that. For instance, why do we need nested simulations of the consumer capitalist computer network variety? It's not equally possible that we're a simulation running in the mind of a yogi or Jesus Christ as he's being crucified. It seems like a cultural bound assumption to assume that if simulations are capable of creating a quality of life that we know, it must necessarily be occurring as a consumer product, of which there's also no evidence for. We could just as easily be the imaginings of a Buddha or an evil wizard or an angel or whatever.
Or a dream of Brahma.
Brahma.
Or a crab on the sack of Santa on Christmas Eve.
I think it's important to note that because the Vedas are the oldest oral tradition still in use, and that because so many of our words, even words like video, have their etymological roots back to the Vedas, it suggests that maybe we have all that stuff built into our language subconsciously. And of course, when we built computers, we built it on that basic subset of knowledge that we had deep in our own culture, right? So,
well, even when we're coming up with new words, we say, well, this is similar to this, is similar to this, right? Similar,
yeah.
That's why this word has its root in this word, because it is similar to this concept.
Yeah, words don't even have roots. That's just another simulation. We can imagine words as trees, which allows us to even think about words in the first place. So let's put aside the fact that I didn't grow up in India. This brings us to number 4 on our list. This is something that Plato and the Greeks took very seriously, and the simulated universe is exactly what is described in Plato's Timaeus, my most favorite thing to talk about on this podcast, even more than Star Wars.
No.
Nah.
No, really. I mean, almost all the craziest stuff we talk about on the show is just in the Timaeus, in this thin little book that they give to you your freshman year, and you're just I'm gonna go look at porn instead and read the Cliff Notes. But it's really worth reading. I don't know if that was your high school experience. Let's go over what it says in Plato's Timaeus in short form and why the universe is a simulation. The universe is created by God, who is a public artificer or Demiurge. It's translated as God in the text, but the word was Demiurge. The Demiurge creates the universe by looking at the eternal patterns in eternity, and Gnostics would call this the pleroma, or the clear white light, and then the Demiurge fashions the world after the patterns he sees in eternity. So, quite literally, the Demiurge is simulating the eternal. This is why things never exist in essence, but have a beginning, a middle, and an end, never fully embodying the concept from which they were drawn from.
So, to a Gnostic or Qabbalist, the Demiurge can be understood in simple terms. It's the reflection of the true God. It's trying to be just like God, but you have to understand that it's not. It's like a reflection of God. Still works, still has all the same functionalities, but it's not the true one. So we can blame that for all the problems, and the true God is just separate from our reality.
In a sense, the Demiurge is a simulation of the eternal, and then anything created by the Demiurge is a fractal simulation of that.
Pretty much.
This concept is also represented by the same Greek philosopher Plato in his allegory of the cave, which we're sure he got from Socrates, but nonetheless, it's the idea that we exist in a world where we're like chained to a wall, where we can see shadows dancing upon it, created by figures at the back of the cave who are around a fire and playing with little cardboard cutouts of animals. And the simulated universe they're creating with their cutout animals and their shadow show, we consider to be real. And of course, one day somebody breaks out of the cave and they see this like show going on around the bonfire. And further still, they can walk out the cave and see the sun. And this is an allegory for the idea that there is a world that's eternal and real and good, but we are like hidden from it. We're shielded from it, and we only see a simulation of it. So this idea, we're in the cave.
We're in the partition.
You got to get out of your box.
So these ideas, even in Greek culture, are very old and central to their entire philosophy. Which leads us to point 5. Perhaps my favorite one. Rational materialism is the final stage of monotheism. Now, if modern science believes that the material world is bound and causal to an uncreated, unchanging, omnipotent, omnipresent, invisible, and untouchable set of discernible laws that can be apprehended by language, or the word, just tells me that this is an outgrowth of ideas they learned from monotheism. After all, before monotheism, the different places you went on the planet had different gods. The truth was different there, but at some point, some very clever people got the idea that there's only one God and this truth is the same everywhere, which we now take for granted as just plain rational science. And so I think that, honestly, material atheism is just monotheism 2.0.
Or it's parallel, and they're trying to come to the same conclusion through different means, but they're both towers are tilting towards the same source in the sky, if you will.
This necessarily makes the material universe a running simulation whose course is determined by an external set of algorithmic codes we would call the laws of physics. After all, where do the laws of physics exist? Can't really point a telescope at them or a microscope. It doesn't work that way. You can only infer what they are tangentially by looking at their effects or what they are causing. They must exist more fundamentally than the material world that they govern. How is this fundamentally different from an astral world or a heaven? I personally don't see a difference. And it frustrates me that rational material atheists can't arrive at this point or acknowledge it in some meaningful way.
Well, they get triggered by language. Again, we're talking about the trip up of having language involved. They think that they have to acknowledge God, or religion as the correct way. And perhaps our world and the rules that govern it are a shadow or a projection of this heaven formula that you're talking about. And not only that, but also even Einstein among these, but like these physicists that are genius, they all follow what's called Spinoza's God. And Spinoza was a philosopher and a scientist back in the day that basically equated the laws of physics and the universe and the way it governs itself as a signature of the astral projection of God, or what we would understand as God.
I don't think it's fully correct what Luke said, that they always come to this conclusion, because a lot of astrophysicists, I mean, you look at Carl Sagan, for example, among many others, and not just astrophysicists, but anyways, there's a lot of scientists that eventually come to the conclusion, like deep into their studies, that, wow, okay, I can't deny intelligent design to this. Some of them eventually get to that point. Some of them don't, but it's kind of this epitome that some of them get. And there's some very interesting books written by some of these scientists that are trying to rationalize between their scientific mind and this new door of spirituality that's opened up to them.
For me, understanding, Jupiter holds the asteroid belt at bay, so all that, those asteroids, they don't hit Earth. Like, that's, to me, like a big machine that's built. Like, there's something that put its hands there and was like, Jupiter, you stay here at this mass and have this gravitational influence on this material.
It protects us to some extent, doesn't it? If there's a large object that's coming into our danger zone, it will pull it out and protect us to some extent.
And so much so that it's pretty much in defiance of the sun. Like the solar system's king, the solar system, Jupiter's like, no, fuck your gravitational pull. I will balance it at this post here, and I will stay here for eternity and keep pretty much our little bubble planet Earth safe. We kind of have to thank Jupiter, Zeus, for keeping our world together.
It's like a guardian, right?
Yeah, in philosophy class, this was the argument of, like, say you're walking in some blank area and you find a watch on the floor and you pick it up and you're able to, like, open it and look at all the intricate designs. You're kind of led to believe that something intelligent made it. So when you look at the universe and the solar system, it's the same thing as looking at a clock. And so something must have made it. That's the ontological argument for the existence of God.
Go ahead, Hecka.
Yeah, Luke and I were talking previously before this episode about, I believe it's written by Brian Greene, The Elegant Universe.
Yep.
And
I love that book.
it's brilliant. If you haven't read it, anyone out there, I fully suggest reading it. But we were talking about how just looking at the specifics about what we know of how the universe is constructed, if there's even one tiny thing that's even like a fraction of a decimal point off, it wouldn't be how it is.
No stars, no planets, none of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you could think, go ahead.
Go, Mark, go. I was going to say something stupid.
I was going to say, you could think of that as like, you know how a tree branches up towards the light and then some of the branches terminate? That's kind of how it goes. Like if a universe doesn't pan out because of one decimal point off on one thing, it seems to kind of cease to exist or perhaps collapse into another branch or make leaves.
I don't know how that works, but that's beautiful to imagine.
I mean, you have to kind of use this imagery because we can't comprehend on the macro scale how this works because we're stuck inside of the system. We can't really see outside. It's like a fish asking a fish to imagine what it's like flying through the clouds or outer space.
And as a Kabbalist, our goal is to get our minds out of the solar system, over the zodiac, over the four-pointed, royal stars and angels, and like mentally take ourselves higher and higher so we can start to have a discussion at that table where we're talking about, we don't have proof of this and that. It's because we're not sitting at that table yet.
Yes.
But we can simulate it in our minds. We have the power to do that at least.
One of my favorite things that we don't have answers for that is exceedingly specific and strange is the moon. It's like on our equator. It goes around exactly tidally locked. And if the more you look at it, it's the strangest object in our solar system, and it's responsible for the fact that we have such a protected existence here on Earth and that we live at all. Like that we have biological life is the moon's fault, and it is the strangest, most improbable object in the solar system, and we still don't know where it's from or what it is. And
That's not a moon.
No, it's not a moon. It's not a moon.
Well, I mean, we can talk about Yesod now then, can't we?
If you go to www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit and subscribe for just $5 a month, you can get all our extended shows, a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our cover art, and access to our Discord server where you can discuss all this stuff until the cows come home and the stars burn out, because that is just how long I'm going to be doing this show, and the Discord server will be on. So thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.